This is the first half of the lecture for muscle contractions. So we're not only dealing with muscles anymore, we're also going to be talking about the nervous system a little bit. So all your skeletal muscles are controlled and stimulated by nerve impulses. Each muscle cell is actually connected to a motor neuron, which is passed from a brain or the spinal cord, which are part of your central nervous system. Normally, a skeletal muscle fiber will contract upon stimulation by a motor neuron. In other words, you've thought, I want to move, and that's what makes it voluntary. Like you have conscious control over your muscles. So you've consciously wanted to control your muscle, and this shows how that works. So this here would be the motor neuron, and this is your muscle fiber in which it contracts. So just as a review about the muscle, this is the sarcolemma. So this is your muscle fiber or the muscle cell. It's cylindrical, striated, and multinucleated. The plasma membrane is called your sarcolemma. The organelles, the cylindrical organelles inside is called your myofibrils. Your myofibrils are made up of sarcomeres, which are they contract from Z to Z, which are the lines, which are your myofilaments, and those are your actin and myosin. So your motor neuron, or I'm sorry, a motor unit is one neuron in all skeletal muscles it stimulates and controls. When a long thread-like extension of the neuron called an axon reaches muscles, it branches off into a number of axon terminals. Each axon terminal will meet and form a junction with the sarcolemma, remember that's your plasma membrane, of each individual cell. So this right here, so just imagine this long extension coming from your muscle fiber, from your brain or spinal cord, and it comes in, and this is your axon, and these are your axon terminals. Okay, your axon, and this is a neuron, right? So this is, just imagine this coming from your brain. So you have this conscious control, you're like, I want to move, and the signal is going to come down this way, okay? Action potential, the signal is called action potential. And essentially what action potential is a movement of ions, which creates energy, and we'll talk more about that later. But so just imagine this, and just know now that it's this action potential. But this action potential comes down the neuron, and it will reach your axon terminals, okay? When it gets to your axon terminals, now that energy's got to go from one cell to the other. So it's got to go from your neuron into the muscle fiber, and that's what we'll get into next. How does that happen? So the neuromuscular junction is the site where the axon terminal and muscle fiber meet. Although each nerve ending and muscle cell membrane are very close, they actually don't touch. There's a space in between called your synaptic cleft. This is a tissue fluid, and it actually helps the ions move even faster. Okay, so again, we're here. So the action potential has come down from the brain, so you're like, move my arm, right? Or the spinal cord, and it's come down, and now it's here. Okay, and now we're zooming into the neuromuscular junction, which is where your axon terminal meets the sarcolemma of the muscle fiber, and we're gonna look right here. Okay, all right, so now we're just looking inside of one axon terminal. So this would be your axon terminal here. Just imagine action potential coming in. This is your synaptic cleft. Remember, they don't touch, it's just fluid in between. This is your the dark red would be like your sarcolemma, right? This is your plasma membrane. These are little receptors, which we'll talk more about after I go through the notes. And these are your synaptic vesicles. Okay, inside of your vesicles, the vesicles is something that holds structures. So that's what these bubbles are essentially. They're little synaptic vesicles. Synaptic, it's close to the synapse. Vesicles, they're holding something, and what they're holding are neurotransmitters called ACH, acetylcholine, and those are what create muscle contraction. Okay, so when a nerve impulses reaches the axon terminal, a chemical referred to a neurotransmitter is released. The name of that neurotransmitter is acetylcholine or ACH. You will write this so many times, you're going to know it and how to spell it. So acetylcholine or ACH. ACH is synthesized or produced in the cytoplasm of the motor neuron, and it's stored in the synaptic vesicles. So those are those little bubbles I was showing you. When the nerve impulses reach the end of the axon, the ACH is released into the synaptic cleft. ACH will then cross the synaptic cleft, attach to the receptors, and now it makes it a channel way for ions. And the ions essentially is what's making action potential, which I'll get into in a minute. Okay, so just to go into what I just said. So action potential has now reached your axon terminal, and it's causing these synaptic vesicles to start basically become activated. Inside, they have ACH. So just imagine all these synaptic vesicles, because action potentials reach this area, that energy, these are going to kind of come to the end, okay? And through something called exocytosis, exit, they're going to open up and release the acetylcholine, ACH, the neurotransmitter, and they're going to cross the synaptic cleft. Your ACH will then attach to your receptors, okay? So now they become more permeable. So now basically what it does is it's opened up this muscle fiber for action potential to come through. What action potential is sodium and potassium ions movement. So when these open up, it makes it more permeable. And so just imagine these opening, and all these sodium ions start flowing in. Okay, so when that happens, now your muscle becomes positive and you get all this energy. Okay. Some potassium ions that are inside the muscle will start moving throughout, and it will exit at the same time. Okay, so now you have this flow of ions, and now you have reached action potential. So that's essentially what this says here. So ACH will create an electrical muscle impulse by changing the charge of the muscle. So ACH attached to the receptor, change the charge. Once enough acetylcholine is attached to the receptor, the sarcolemma becomes more permeable to sodium, which will start rushing into your muscle cell. This will then cause potassium to start moving within and out of the muscle, which cause myofilaments to slide and contract. We'll get into that next. This upset is called action potential, which conducts electrical impulses, and that will contract your muscle cell. So here's a picture, another picture to show you. So from your brain. So your brain was like, move, right? Here, let me get this out of your way first. Okay, so you decide that you want to move. So action potential, what comes down the axon, right, to the axon terminal. Okay, so now we're in this little box. All right, when you get to this box, these are all your synaptic vesicles with acetylcholine inside. Okay, so when action potential reaches this area, that's going to cause your synaptic vesicles with the ACH inside to come to the end, and exocytosis occurs. Your ACH will now cross. So now we're going to zoom in to this picture. So when the ACH, so this is exocytosis right here. So this is what we're looking at. So ACH is now crosses the synaptic cleft, that's the space in between with the fluid, and it attaches to this purple structure called your receptors. Okay, when that happens, it makes it so it changes the charge of your sarcolemma, and when that happens, it's going to cause sodium to start flowing in. Okay, when sodium comes in, right, so sodium's coming in, it's going to change charge again, and that causes the potassium inside of the cell to start flowing out of the muscle fiber. Okay, this flow of ions is what that action potential is, and now you've got this energy, and the energy is inside the muscle. Next, we're not going to go through this now, I'm going to stop because it's a lot, and we're going to practice, but now all that action potential is going to go inside and then cause all your all of the myofilaments to move. Okay, but again, we'll go into that next. Okay, so the sliding filament structure we'll go into next time. So you're going to stop, just take the quiz, and tomorrow I'm going to go over all this stuff in class with you, and then we'll see where you are.